Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Edie Summers, and I wanted to share um, a way that you could analyze a poem in order to write an essay about it or a paper. Sometimes it can be really intimidating for people, so I'm going to choose one of my favorite poems. This might be an assignment that you have at the high school level, maybe undergraduate level. Most likely it's one of those two. So I do have my screen shared here as well. So this is a famous poem by T.S. Eliot, and I think the really important thing to know about analyzing poetry is, yes, there are certain ways that critics and ways that might be formally recognized as like the meaning of the poem. But remember that your interpretation matters too. And what's I think is really important when you're having to find elements and or topics in a poem that you could write about in an essay, really gravitate toward what makes sense to you. And, of course, you're going to pick up on topics within the class. I'm assuming that you're going to be talking about any poem or piece of literature that you're analyzing in your class as well. So, all of it's fair game, right? Like, take what you've learned from class and also take what you've gleaned from reading the poem or the literature itself, and then attach your own experience and meaning to it. Um, yes, your professors can be impressed if you are picking up on topics that maybe the critics are also picking up on, and maybe topics and themes that are universally recognized. They are potentially going to be impressed by that, but I would also remember that your own opinion matters too. Your own experience with a poem or a piece of literature also matters. So again, we're going to talk about analyzing a poem today so that you could start to write an essay about it. So the poem I chose, again, is one of my favorites. It's called The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. So I'm pulling it up. Hopefully you can see this here on the screen. I just pulled it up from a website, poetryfoundation.org. This is a really cool poem. It's long, it's more modern, and there's a lot that you could get from this. There's a lot that you could interpret in this poem. So let's just read. Let's read through some of it, and then I'm going to share with you what's come up for me, and then I'm going to explain to you how I would create an essay based on what I see in this poem. And again, some of it might be tied to actual metaphors or, literary themes. A lot of times, poets and other authors in literature are going to refer to other authors in literature and other works of art, other poetry, other works of literature. Just like in science, literature tends to build upon itself, meaning that there are always references to the past, and then the artists, the writers are going to be building on what they were inspired by, whether it's other writers, other works of art, whether it's poetry, literature, etc. So you're going to often see references. I think there are references in this poem. But don't necessarily worry about what's official unless your instructor really wants you to. It depends on what your instructions are for your essay. If your instructor wants you to be super, super specific about maybe a very specific and formal topic, like, an allegory in the poem or a reference to another piece of literature, then by all means, most definitely take the time to understand and figure out what that is. And I'm assuming that your professor would go through that in class first. Ask for help from a classmate if you don't understand what the topic is or how to figure out what to write about, if it's something super formal. If it's more of an essay that is more based on your experience of the poem, then that's a little easier sometimes to write. Of course, the essay process itself is a little more formal. And we'll go into that after I read the poem here. There's a very easy and specific way to write an essay that's based on analyzing a piece of literature, whether it's a poem or a book, or anything else for that matter. And maybe some of this has changed, I don't know, but this is the structure that I used in school. I'll go over it briefly, and then we'll circle back around to the essay part. But briefly, when you're writing an essay, you want to pick a theme, or a topic, or a thesis, and then that's going to be your first paragraph. And then the other paragraphs in the kind of the body of your essay are going to be explaining that thesis, analyzing the topics, and proving your thesis or topic. And again, when you're working with a poem, it's a little bit easier, but again, sometimes you're also pulling from other literature or critical theory, right, that is related to your topic or the poem in your essay. And then your summary and your essay is going to be about summarizing in a very succinct and clear way, like kind of like the highlights of your essay are and what they are. So let's go ahead and read through this. Again, this is a very, very famous poem by a very, very famous writer, T.S. Eliot. It's called The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I'm probably not going to read the whole thing to you because it is really long, but I'm going to do some of the highlights, and then I'm going to share with you how I would probably pick out a topic in this. And this would, of course, be based on probably the fact that my instructor had told me to write about, in an essay format, maybe themes, a theme that stood out to me, or maybe a couple themes. So, and again, your professor or your teacher might have you actually be doing something more specific or different than that. So again, refer to your instructor, ask your classmates for help if you need. Okay, I'm going to read some of this to you. Let us go, then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Okay, so there's a lot we could unpack right there, but one thing I'm going to point out is that even in the very beginning here, you could potentially pull out, sometimes you can analyze, let's say, even a single sentence in a poem, or analyze your thesis could be built around, let's say, the topic of uncertainty, because I think that is definitely one of the topics in here. This is a more modern poem, and it kind of has that feel of modern life. And the way you can kind of tell that this is a more modern poem is because, yes, there's some rhyming, like I and sky, but then he quickly kind of changes up and takes away that rhyming, right? Like table does not rhyme with streets. Streets does rhyme with retreats. Hotels does rhyme with shells, in a similar way, but he's got like question here that doesn't really rhyme. Like you can see that it's more modern. There's more leeway with it. You could focus on the structure of the poem, right? And how that lends itself to living in this modern age where things are more uncertain, because this poem doesn't follow a distinct pattern. That alone could be a topic for this poem. And of course, you would definitely want to read the whole thing before you made that as your thesis, but that's an idea. And don't take anything that I say to be your complete thesis. You always want to put your own self into your essay and your analysis. Make it as personal as possible, but also make it as professional and structured as possible when you're writing your essay. Okay, and this poem has a lot of really famous quotes in it. This is one of them. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Now, of course, here's a reference to Michelangelo. There's a lot you could unpack with that. You could do some, references to Michelangelo. I'm assuming that there's a reason that he's mentioning him in here. So you could kind of take that artist and maybe apply some of Michelangelo's work to the structure and meaning and intent behind this poem. So that would be interesting. Of course, that'd be kind of traveling through different time periods, but that could be a really interesting topic. Okay, so let's do a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to scroll down because some of the most famous, here again, he's got this phrase that he also repeats. So that would be another thing you could do, is just not only could you refer to Michelangelo and kind of compare the work of Michelangelo to the work of T.S. Eliot, but you could also unpack, why does T.S. Eliot keep mentioning this phrase? Why does he do that? That would alone be a topic. And there's a lot you could do with that. And again, you're going to want to defend your argument in your essay. Okay, here's another really famous part of this poem. And indeed, there will be time to wonder, do I dare, and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and his legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions. With a minute we'll reverse. Now this is a really famous, do I dare disturb the universe? I'm pretty sure he says that again in here. So again, that's another topic or a theme right there. You could build your whole essay around, do I dare disturb the universe? And you could build it around this question in general. And then how does this question relate to the context of the poem? That's another way you could go. So again, you always kind of want to focus, if you have the opportunity from your teacher or professor, to focus on what you gravitate toward, what your strengths are, what you are interested in the literature that you're reading. You don't need to understand every single thing, anything that you're reading. It's almost impossible, in my opinion. And I have a degree in English literature. And even with that, as much as I loved poetry and literature, I didn't understand certain things that I was reading or certain references. There's a lot often that's being referred to in these works. There's no way to know all of it, and that's what your professors and teachers are for. They can help you understand those references, and kind of like, it brings up a lot of topics, like what was going on during this time that T.S. Eliot wrote this. A lot of times there are politics that are being referred to, or again, other time periods. I mean, we've got Michelangelo mentioned in here, so that's a whole different time period. But this is another phrase that's referred to over and over again in this poem. Do I dare disturb the universe? That's a great topic. Okay. And I'm going to drop down now to one of my favorite parts of the poem. This is probably my favorite part. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling along the floors of silent seas. I mean, there's a lot you could do with that right there. Right? That kind of points to uncertainty, or wanting to be in a different place, or maybe like the struggle of living in the modern world, or just wanting to be something other than what you are, or maybe speaking to what your true nature is, or your soul, right? Like, and kind of your soul versus the backdrop of the modern world. There's so much you can do with this poem, and with any work of literature. And the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker. And in short, I was afraid. So this is an incredible part of the poem. And of course, he's definitely talking about fear here and uncertainty, right? That's how I am perceiving it. I don't think I'm the only one, but there's a lot. Again, you can bring your own interpretation to this. How does it feel to live in the modern world? T.S. Eliot is a relatively modern writer. So, How does it compare to living now versus back when he lived? How does it compare to living when he lived versus when Michelangelo lived? What does it mean to live with uncertainty in this world? What does it mean to live with fear in this world? These are all topics that you can explore. Okay, here's more of this very famous poem. And would it have been worth it after all? After the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by her head, should say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it at all. And so there's so much more I could read to this. And of course, here's that phrase repeated again down lower. That is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. And he grew up, I'm going to read a little bit more of this, but I just want to point out here that here's another reference to literature, right? Famous literature, Lazarus, come from the dead. It's referring to the Bible, as far as I know. So, maybe that's a way that you create a theme, and what's the context of referring to this other work of literature or this other great work in the context of this poem? That's another topic that you could do. So here is, again, here's another reference to another work of literature, Shakespeare. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be, am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two. Advise the prince, no doubt, an easy tool. Now, there's a lot you can do with this right here. Hamlet was kind of full of doubt. And if you've read Shakespeare, doesn't he have that famous line, to be or not to be? Here's doubt right here. Advise the prince, no doubt, an easy tool. T.S. Eliot is kind of being, I think the word would be facetious here, right? Like he's kind of saying what's, it would be actually the opposite of what he's saying here. It would be extremely hard to advise the Prince Hamlet, who is full of doubt, even though T.S. Eliot is saying it would be easy. So he's, again, kind of, not only is he referring to another famous work of art, Prince Hamlet, from Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, but he's also kind of making a play on, here's a famous character from another work of literature who is full of doubt. And he's saying that, oh yes, even though I am experiencing doubt too, I could most definitely advise this prince. That would be one way to interpret this section and to create a whole essay around the topic of doubt, right? And you could even maybe compare. Maybe Hamlet well. You could compare Hamlet to this poem and talk about doubt or uncertainty. There's so much you can do. Again, do what works for you. Do what you gravitate toward. Even if you're given pretty strict guidelines, you can still work into your essay what's going to work for you. Okay, so I'm going to read just the very, very last part here. I grow old, I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? This is the most famous line, I think, from this poem, beyond maybe the part about women talking of Michelangelo. Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. Here's doubt, right? Here's doubt right here. Uncertainty. Even though this is all kind of talking about beautiful experience here, right? Kind of like the beauty of being alive, which is, you could write about how life is full of uncertainty, and yet it's thrilling at the same time, right? It's thrilling at the same time. That would be another theme or topic. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back, when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. Now, this last line is really prophetic and profound, and there's a lot you could do with that. Kind of like it's kind of maybe this is how I would interpret this. Maybe it's talking about the human condition, the nature of the human condition, right? Again, you've kind of got that kind of beautiful, even spiritual, thrilling experience of being alive combined with the doubt and uncertainty and fear of being alive. And then kind of how does that relate to what it means to be human? That would be another theme that you could do. So there's so much that you can do with writing and interpreting poetry and writing an essay. So let's talk just a little bit more about what you would do for your essay. Again, it kind of depends on what your instructor tells you, but personally, probably what I would do for this poem at this time, I think I've written about this poem before, but if I were to do it again right now and to write an essay, I would probably talk about the uncertainty of the human condition, right? Like maybe my topic would be something like the beauty and uncertainty of the human condition. That could be my thesis, my topic. So I would write my opening paragraph, something around that. And then I would prove that, or I would talk about that or analyze that topic or those topics in the body of my essay. And then I would do a very succinct, clear, and kind of maybe even if I can, like very kind of a summary that helps people very clearly understand what my essay was about, but also maybe adds those final insights. Sometimes that's what a summary can do too, is share those final tidbits of insight that can really make your essay stand out. So again, I know it can be intimidating to interpret literature, but it's also can be really fun and thrilling. And there's literature is, writers are often pulling from politics. They're pulling from other literature and other writers. They can be pulling from other topics that are going on, even in science, and they're pulling from history. They're pulling from a lot of topics. So there's probably something that you can find in whatever it is that you're analyzing, whether it's a poem or a book or philosophy, anything that you have to analyze. There's probably something that you can find in it, a theme, right? Something that you can relate to, and then you can expand upon for an essay. So I wish you all the best, and I hope this helps you. And I'm just going to check over here in the chats. We do have a whole chat thing set up here. So if you have any comments, feel free to make them, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I don't see any comments right now, but we do have a whole chat capacity in here, and also for the recorded version. So feel free to make any comments. And I wish you all the best in all of your endeavors with schoolwork, and whether you're in high school, in undergraduate school, graduate school, or even working on your PhD. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.